Sure, you might not have heard of these books, but now it's time to change that. Hi, welcome. Come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am going to take you through some of the books that I think are criminally underrated. I never hear about them here on BookTube. I've never seen them on BookTok, on Instagram, on Twitter. I've never really heard people talking about them, which is such a shame because these are some of the books that I have loved so much. If you've read any of these books, please do let me know in the comments because I need somebody to talk about them with. First one on the list is The Better Brown Stories by Alan Alberg, and I read this first when I was maybe about 7 or 8. It is about the Brown family, who are the stars of a book written by the writer. He has no name, he's just a writer who lives with his mother and goes to a shed in the backyard to write his stories every single day. The Brown family are checking through some of the stories that he has written about them, and they don't love them. They're not in love with how they've been portrayed, with the situations that they're being put in, with the things that they're being forced to do, so they decide to go and have a chat with him and try and spice their stories up a little bit. What ensues is the characters being put into so many different worlds that you will know from literature. One of them is put into the world of the Trojan horse, one of them is put into the world of the famous five, and I absolutely adore this book. I haven't read it in such a long time because it's actually really hard to find a copy. I had to go on eBay a couple of years ago just to even get one. But anytime I get an opportunity to read this book is just such a treat. Next up is Stuck on You by Portia McIntosh. This is a romance book following Sadie, who has just started a job in an advertising company in London, and she's hot desking with somebody who comes in the 3 days of the office that she isn't there. They leave post-it notes to kind of keep in touch with each other and complain about the boss that they absolutely hate. However, it turns out that this boss does not have anywhere to go for Christmas. He has no plans, he has no family to spend the time with. So Sadie starts to feel a little bit sorry for him and invites him to spend Christmas with her on the island that she grew up in and spend some time with her family as well. While they're together, there are some really lovely Christmas traditions that the entire town gets involved in. Damien, who is Sadie's boss, starts to kind of get more into the festive spirit, and she realizes that he is not as bad as the post-it notes are making him out to be. Next up is The Split by Laura Kay, and I definitely need more people to read this one because I absolutely fell in love with how funny this one is. You're following Ali, who has been mercilessly dumped by her girlfriend Emily, so she decides to head back to her dad's house in Sheffield to kind of recoup and figure out where she's going to go from here, mainly because Emily got the house in the divorce. But to make things fair, Ali is taking back Malcolm, Emily's cat, with her. While Ali is back in Sheffield, she bumps into her lifelong friend Jeremy, who is also gay, is one of her best friends with such a long time, and it was also Ali's first beard when they were younger. They decide to kind of reinvent themselves, boost up their life, and run a half marathon. They have absolutely no training prowess, they have very little energy, so they decide to enlist the help of Joe, who is a trained athlete and is going to get them from couch to 10k. However, Joe has definitely caught Ali's eye. Next up is Candy by Kevin Brooks, and I have got one friend with whom I can talk about this book, but I definitely need more people to pick it up. So this book is about Joe, who meets Candy when he is on the way back from a doctor's appointment one evening, and she's kind of mysterious. She's not giving away a whole lot about herself, but it turns out that Candy is a teenage prostitute, has a heroin addiction, and is very much under the thumb of Iggy, who is her pimp. This kind of starts a spiral in Joe's life of things mishappening, going wrong, people disappearing, things happening when they shouldn't be happening. And I was absolutely obsessed with this really high octane relationship when I was younger. It's one that I would love to read again and see if I actually do love it again as much as I did back then. But as of now, it's one of my favorite books that I read when I was a teenager. I definitely need more people to get on board with this book and with Kevin Brooks' writing as a whole. Next up is A Keeper by Graham Norton. And Graham Norton himself is not underrated. A lot of people will be familiar with him as a chat show host, but I don't think a lot of people know that he's also an author. This is the second book that Graham wrote, and I also have copies of the other two that have been published so far, and there is a fourth one, Forever Home, coming out in September of this year. This one follows Elizabeth, whose mother has recently passed away, and she's coming back from New York to kind of sort out the house, get it ready for sale, and get all of the affairs in order. While Elizabeth is cleaning out the house, she notices that there are some letters between her mother and a man who Elizabeth believes is her father. The letters start to get more darker as she starts reading them, and things are not really as they had seemed. There is also a separate timeline where you are following a young woman in the 1970s who wakes up one morning in a house that she has no idea where it is and no idea how she's gotten there. Next one on the list is one that I have spoken about countless times, but again, I only know a couple of people who have read it and that I can talk about it with. The I Heart series by Lindsay Kelk. This one follows Angela, who discovers her boyfriend with another woman in the backseat of their car as they're at a best friend's wedding. So Angela goes home, puts all of her stuff into a suitcase, and just books a flight for the next available destination, New York. When she gets to New York, she just completely reinvents herself. She gets a brand new career, makes brand new friends, goes out on loads of dates, and actually meets a guy that she gets along really well with. However, there is another man vying for her affections as well. So who is she going to pick from? I love following all 8 books in the series. I am absolutely obsessed with it. And it's one book that I would love to know where the characters are right now. Finally is another author who is not underrated of themselves, but this book is definitely one that people don't talk about as much as their other ones, and that is Watermelon by Marian Keyes. This was Marian's first ever novel, and it follows Claire, who has just given birth to her daughter, but on the same day, her husband announces that he is leaving her. He's fallen in love with another woman, and so Claire returns from London to her home place back in Ireland to kind of re-establish herself and figure out where she's going to go from here. She meets and falls in love with one of her sister's friends, Adam, but is there a little bit of a tumultuous start between Claire and Adam overall? This is the first book in the Walsh Sisters series, which a lot of people will know about now because Rachel's Holiday has gotten a sequel, again Rachel, so it is very much in the mouths of babes at the moment. However, I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to read all 5 books in order. You can kind of dip in and out of them because it's not a very linear story. Things happen to one sister and then there's another book with another sister. So I wouldn't say that you necessarily need to read all 5 of them right away in order. But I think that because of that, people will just put the other books in the Walsh Sisters series to the side and focus just on Rachel's Holiday, which is such a pity because then they're missing out on so many wonderful stories, such as Claire figuring out how to parent her daughter as a single parent, Helen and her struggles with depression, Maggie and the breakup of her relationship, and Anna also moving to New York and figuring out where she's going to go from there. I absolutely love all 5 of these books, and I definitely think you need to check them out. Those are just some of the books that I think more people need to hear about. What is one book that you think is criminally underrated? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.